Today is Friday. What's the aim? Tisvav? Tisvav Sivan Tovshin Ayin Gimel. We're in Teres Menachem Sefer Mamar Tovshin Yud Aleph Tovshin Yud Beis. We're in the Mamar of Shabbos Pashas Eikev. Mevorchem Achedesh Elul Tovshin Yud Aleph. Dibra Maschil Vehaya Eikev Tishme'un. We're on page Kuf Chav Tes, the paragraph that begins with Acha Inyan Hu. The Rebbe is explaining here the added quality that the neshama achieves specifically down here, lamata, in this physical world, over and above what the state of the neshama is in Atzilus, or specifically Malchus Atzilus. Although there is greater revelation of godliness in Atzilus, although the neshama is far more united as one with godliness before it comes down, nevertheless, the blockages and the concealments, the challenges that are presented to the neshama when it's clothed in a body, call forth a far greater thirst in the neshama to godliness, and that can only be accomplished down here. With that, the Rebbe explained the verse Shcheira Nivenova B'nei Yerushalayim, that the neshama down here says to the neshama above, which is called B'nei Yerushalayim, the daughters of Jerusalem, the neshama above. The neshama down here says, although I am darkened, although I find myself in a state of concealment and blockage, Vinova, I am beautiful and I'm attractive because I have an element that I can achieve specifically only in these circumstances. But the Rebbe said, this is all fine so far as Ahava is concerned, love of Hashem is concerned. What about Yiras Hashem? Love is something which is related to the person's existence, to the I of the person. The person loves, the person is attracted, is passionate about godliness. Yira is bittul. In other words, Ahav is connected to the Metzias Adam, to the existence of the individual, to the person as an identifiable entity. Whereas Yira, fear, seems to be something which sets aside the person's Metzias, sets aside the person's individual, separate identity. So it would seem that where are there more prevailing circumstances to call forth Yira, fear, that would be above? What added quality does the neshama gain down here in terms of Yiras Hashem, fear of Hashem, over and above that which is in the neshama before it comes down, as it is above in Atzilus, where there's a far greater revelation of godliness. So that's where we're up to Achei Inyan Hu. Before we say it inside, I want to just perhaps preface the two terms that the Rebbe uses here and try to elaborate a little bit on them, which will then give us an easier understanding of what the point that the Rebbe is trying to make. Yira, fear of Hashem, awe, is bittul, is related to bittul. When one is in awe of someone, one is nullified, bottled before that someone. Right? The opposite of love. Love is the idea of being drawn to the person and therefore focusing on one's existence, one's identifiable identity, as it were. Whereas Yira, awe, is the idea of setting yourself aside, bittul. When we talk about bittul over here, we're talking about nullification before whom? Before Hashem, before godliness, before Hashem. There are two terms that are used in terms of bittul. At least the two terms that are relevant to the discussion that we're having, in terms of the nullification before Hashem. One is kula kamei kelo chshiv, and the other is ein oid. Kula kamei kelo chshiv means everything kamei before him, kilo as naught, chshiv is considered. Before him, everything is considered as naught. That's one expression, expressing the greatness of Hashem and the smallness and the meaninglessness of everything else. There's another term, as we say in Aleinu every day, the pasuk, "Kakosov Yadaita hayoim b'shavos alavecha ki Hashem hu Elokim b'shamayim mimal v'al haaretz mitochas ein oid." What does ein oid mean? There is nothing more. In other words, there is nothing. And as the Alter Rebbe explains in Shiur in Tanya, the second part of Tanya, that Ein Oid means not that there is no other God, it means there is no other existence other than Hashem. Right? What's the difference between the statement Kula Kamei Keloch Shiv, everything before him is as naught, and Ein Oid, there is nothing more? Kula Kamei Keloch Shiv denotes that there is something. However, it's considered as naught. Kula, everything, meaning to say there is something that exists. Keloch Shiv is considered as naught before him. But it exists. Ein Oid means there is no other existence other than Hashem. Says the Rebbe here of Gewaldige Wort, which seems to go against the grain in a certain sense. It would seem to go against what we would naturally consider as right. And the Rebbe turns it on its head, based on other Mamarim and Chassidus. Where is there a greater bittul? Where is there a greater nullification of the neshama before Hashem? Down here or up above? It would seem that wherever there's, as the Rebbe says, wherever there's a greater revelation of godliness, there's a greater nullification before godliness. Correct? So where is that? That's up above. Says the Rebbe. Above, the bittul that the neshama could attain, the nullification that the neshama could attain, is kula kamei keloch shiv. Everything before him is as naught. In other words, there is a neshama, which is considered as naught before godliness, because the revelation of godliness is so powerful. Specifically down here, when the neshama comes and clothes itself in the body, where there are all these concealments, yes, the bittul does not come naturally to the soul. It's got to fight and work in order to reveal the godliness and therefore the bittul, the nullification that follows. But once it breaks through those barriers, once it breaks through those concealments, and it realizes that really and truly all of existence is what? Is God. The neshama attains the nullification of Ein Oid. And that can be accomplished specifically down here. But we just finished saying that wherever there's greater revelation, there's greater bittul. Yes, indeed. The force of the yira, the force of the awe is greater above because there's greater revelation. So, but it's more as a result of the fact that the revelation of godliness is so powerful that it overwhelms the neshama, as it were. But if you want to talk about the essence of the fear of Hashem, the essence of where is there greater bittul in terms of where is there more setting aside of the nivras, the created beings' existence, that is more down here in this physical realm when the neshama comes and clothes itself in the body. Are you with me? So now let's see how the Rebbe articulates it in his words inside. The Rebbe is addressing the question, what greater quality does, in terms of Yiras Hashem, fear of Hashem, awe of Hashem, does the neshama attain by coming down here, clothing itself in the body, over and above the Yira, the awe that the neshama has before Hashem, before it comes down, where there's greater revelation of godliness, and therefore it would seem greater awe of the soul to Hashem. So this is the question the Rebbe addresses, and this is what he says. But the Indian is, the explanation is, the af she'etzem hayira hu b'teikef yeser b'yeser neshama l'mayla, although the yira itself, the awe itself, is far more powerful when the neshama is above, as a result of what? As a result of the fact that there's a greater revelation of godliness there, and there are no concealments on the soul. Mikol mokem muhus hayira. However, the essence of the awe, hilamata ba'ifnei yeser, is down below here in a more profound way. Why? What does the neshama have to do in order to attain awe before Hashem as it's closed in the body? It needs to achieve something which is called hanochas atzmusay, setting himself aside. Setting aside, we're talking about the neshama as it's clothed in the body, so it's operating through the body. So it needs to set aside the natural ego that I exist and come to the recognition.
That applied to love. Ego applied to love.
Correct. So yira means setting aside the ego. That's my point. You have to set it aside.
Yeah, but you didn't say that yira was involved with personality.
Personality,
I, me, and mine. You said it was associated.
Personality is a natural phenomenon of a soul in a body in this physical world. Now the question is, this personality that exists, if it is to have Ahavas Hashem, Avas Hashem means I love Hashem. So there must be somebody that loves Hashem. So it's not setting myself aside, rather it's infusing myself, I that exist, I'm infused with love to Hashem. Yiras Hashem, awe of Hashem, is the other way around. The I that exists has to set myself aside to be in awe before Hashem. Right? The fact that I exist, the fact that we exist as an I, we possess an ego, that's a natural phenomenon of the domain in which in the environment in which we find ourselves. That is part and parcel of the essential existence of this physical realm. That's the whole point. And it's because of that the very essence of Hashem could express itself specifically down here. As we learn that the ego, the Yesh HaNivra, the created Yesh, is really and ultimately and truly an expression of the Yesh Ha'amiti, the true ego, the true Yesh. We are a reflection or a mirror image, if you will, in a coarse way, of the very essence of Hashem. And that's why these things are attainable specifically in our realm rather than above, where there is more bittul, where there's less of the neshama is dveikos, is no ego, non-ego. But let's go back to the yira. So the essence of the fair is down here. The neshama attains a far more profound yira than above. Why? Because yira really and truly is the idea of what? Setting yourself aside. And where does one need to set himself aside more in order to attain awe? Down here. This is far more relevant to the soul as it is down here. Down here, the soul, when it comes into a body, is a far more identifiable entity than it is above. And therefore, awe demands a greater setting aside of itself in order to attain that. Similar to that which is explained in another place, the difference between the nullification of Ein Oid, the nullification which is expressed in the term there is nothing else besides Hashem, and the nullification which is expressed in the term that everything before him is as naught. What is the difference between the two? When we talk about light or revelations of godliness, in other words, in a place where there is greater revelation of godliness, or you take Oir. Take, for example, you have the luminary and you have the ray that comes from it, right? So in what way is the ray nullified before the luminary? It exists. Or the Rebbe is going to superimpose it in a moment on the neshama. The Oir exists. Or if you superimpose that on godliness, Oir eliki, you have the very essence of Hashem, and then you have God's manifestations, God's revelations. The spheres of the Atzilus, the divine attributes of Atzilus, are godliness. They exist. What are we saying? That before Hashem, they are considered as naught, but they're not non-existent. They are very powerful, and in fact, they are. If you go higher in levels of revelations, they're infinitely powerful. However, before the very essence of Hashem, they're considered as naught. But the nullification of Ein Oid, there is nothing else, is this can be attained only in a yesh, specifically in a yesh. And the Rebbe now explains it in the neshamas. As the neshama is above before it comes down, as the neshama is in Malchus Datzilis, the nullification that the soul can attain, the level of the nullification that the soul is at, as above, is in the mode of everything before Hashem is as naught. What does that mean? Through the fact that the soul contemplates. That it is his source that gives him life constantly. And the soul relative to his source is unbelievably distant. That the source, meaning Hashem himself, is so much more powerful and greater. In other words, the godliness in its domain is so much more powerful and greater than the soul. He becomes completely nullified. And he's considered as naught. However, nevertheless, before the soul recognizes, let's assume for a moment that there's a moment before the hisbanus, before the soul contemplates the greatness of its source. It's godliness, and it's aware of the fact that it's godliness. Since the soul is godliness, he doesn't become completely nullified. He doesn't become non-existent, doesn't expire, but if in the Ein Oid. that there is nothing else besides Hashem. No existence at all. I'm godliness, but before the infinite greatness of my source, I'm considered as naught. It's like a candle lit in the sunshine. If you put your finger in it, it'll get burnt. If you put a paper in there, it'll catch fire. But it's meaningless. You can't even see it because the source is so powerful. But this is so far as the soul is when it's above. But when the soul is down here, below, where there are concealments and covers. So when the soul comes to the recognition, he catches on that the truth is not as the way it appears naturally. As it is not like this. That what? That the concealments and the covers is not the reality. The reality is that what? As ein oid. There is nothing else besides Hashem. What happens then? What does it call forth from the soul? This false perception that the soul had, that because it's clothed in the body, there are concealments and covers, and there might be something other than Hashem. Once we break through that, the soul says, hey, it completely removes, I don't really exist. These concealments don't really exist. The ego that I perceive doesn't really exist at all. Not that it's considered as naught. It doesn't exist at all. And then the soul, through the body, operating through the body, knows that there is only the very essence of God's infinity. And there's nothing else besides Him at all. And where does the soul attain this? Specifically when the neshama comes down into the body, and it's the concealments and those covers and those challenges, if you will, the mirage. I'm using it as a borrowed term. I don't want to go to the debate if it is a mirage, not a mirage, but let's use it as a mirage. This cover and concealment challenges the soul to break through and say, it appears that there is no godliness, it appears, it appears that the world has independent existence, it appears that a world exists, and once the soul breaks through all that, says, really and truly only Hashem exists. So that mirage is completely, the bittul in the soul is complete, in that sense. This is the special quality that is attained in terms of awe when the soul comes down into this world, specifically down here. Granted that the bittul itself, the nullification itself, is far more powerful above, right? Because the revelation of godliness is far greater, and the soul is far more sensitive and spiritual, and has no blockages. But the essence of this nullification, which is what? In terms of setting oneself aside, which is the essence of awe. The essence of awe is I set myself aside and I'm in awe of something which is far more powerful than me, because of the distance, because of the concealments. It's in a far more profound way when the soul is down here below. And therefore we could say, and we do say, I am darkened, but yet v'nova, I am attractive and beautiful, meaning that down here, notwithstanding those concealments, or rather because of those concealments, I'm more attractive and more beautiful. Gam le'inyan hayira, also, so far as awe of Hashem is concerned, and not only love, as mentioned before. So it's both.
So the statement of tzaddik, is it?
Well, now you're talking about who has av and yira. That's a different discussion. Who has love and fear. But now we're talking just about.
Who is able to discard his.
Well, the Alter Rebbe says in Tanya that there is ahava mesoteres. There are these things that we possess naturally. Tzaddik, of course, possesses them at a far higher level and far more permanent, and so on and so forth. But every neshama certainly possesses the potential for this.
We're talking about yira.
Both ahava and yira.
Discarding of the concealment.
Correct. So by a tzaddik is in a permanent state.
Permanent state of
ahava and yira, of having attained this level. Simple folk like us, we have glimpses of it, and we have windows into this kind of thing, because this is something that the neshama possesses naturally. We certainly have the potential for it. At a certain level. Maybe not like a tzaddik, but at a certain level we do have the potential for that. But this is the Rebbe's beautiful, profound explanation, how ahava and yira have a more profound dimension to them, specifically when the neshama comes down here, over and above what the neshama has lamaila. Let's just start a few lines more in chapter 4. If you remember, the Rebbe started by saying, Klas kshorim is kashrom b'do b'do. He quoted the Zohar that there are 3 knots that are tied one to the other. The Jewish people to the Torah, and the Torah to Hashem. So the Rebbe now says that just like we find a more profound element in the soul as it comes down here, although it's although it's connected to Hashem in a mode of iskashrus, in a mode of being tied rather than dveikus, rather than cleaving, which denotes a lower level. It's not united as one because the neshama is on a far lower level down here, right? Than it is above. Nevertheless, there's an added quality that is attained specifically to the neshama coming down here. The Rebbe says so too. It's concerning Torah. Torah, because we have these three knots: Jewish people connected to Torah, Torah connected to Hashem. So just like and they're all parallel. So just like in the neshama, you have these two states of the neshama above and the neshama below, and an added quality in the neshama below over and above the neshama as it is above. So too in Torah, you have Torah as it is above, and then you have Torah as it is below. And although Torah as it is above is in a far higher level than it is below, to the extent that Torah even preceded the creation of the world, as we looked in the previous Maimer of Shavuos, Alpayim Shana Kodma Terel B'Riyos Shalom, it's at a far higher level in its source, right? There is an added quality that the Torah possesses down here specifically, and both in the Galia Shabbat in the revealed aspects of the Torah, and in Pnimiyas Torah, and in the inner dimensions of Torah. Let's just start a few lines. Chapter 4. Dalet. V'hinei kshem shebekesher ha'alaf di Yisraelim kutsh b'rich yesh shebekesher ha'alaf. The Yisraelim kutsh b'rich yesh ma'ale b'skashas and shem lamata davka, just like concerning the first knot. Which is the first knot? The knot of the connection, the fact that the knot of the Jewish people being tied to Hashem. There is an added quality in the connection in the hiskashrus, in the connection through being tied of the soul to godliness. Specifically, that added quality is where there's an added quality in the soul as it is down here. So too, it is also a connection to the second knot of the two, which is what the Torah as it is tied to Hashem. Yesh Maila, there is an added quality, a more profound quality, in the connection of the Torah to God as it plays itself out down here in this physical realm. Another few lines. For although the Torah, as it's given to us down here, is God's wisdom and God's will, Torah is God's wisdom, and the mitzvahs are God's will, nevertheless, when the neshama comes down here, when the Torah comes down here, it is merely outpourings of the celestial wisdom. In other words, it's God's wisdom and God's will, but relative to God's wisdom and will as it is above, these are just outpourings. These are just, as it were, residue. Kemaimer, as the expression in Bereishis Rabbah in the Medrash, the Torah is outpourings of the celestial wisdom. And the Rebbe is going to explain this in great detail. How we have the added quality in the Torah down here over and above the Torah in its original source, which is very, very high and even beyond Welt. And nonetheless, there are those elements that we can attain specifically through Torah down below. More about that in Mitzvah Hashem after Shabbos.